Hello, welcome to the video. So this is part 5. There's some things I didn't cover in parts 1 through 4 that I'm going to cover in this that I actually cover in other videos on my channel here. So this is more things along family, what's going on in Rome, Nero, languages, language barrier, that sort of thing, where just more evidence that's unlikely that Peter stepped from Rome unless he, the person, not good, not good character. So if we first go to Matthew 8, chapter 8, verse 14, it said, when Jesus came to Peter's home, Apostle Peter, he saw his mother-in-law laying sick in bed with a fever. So Peter having a mother-in-law, he was married, so he had a wife. And so if we go to 1 Peter 5:13, she who's in Babylon, referring to his wife, chosen together with you, sends you greetings. Okay, so I don't think he's referring to an entire church. It's more singular here. I mean, Mark is a single person. She is a single person. Can the phrase chosen together with you work with church? Yes. But I really believe that she here is referring to his wife. It just makes sense. Fact that the word she is used there. And I don't think this is a spiritual son. If we go to, again, so he's married, right? He has a wife. It was the norm in Jewish culture, Genesis 1:28, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and rule over the fish of the sea, okay, etc. So that was the norm in Jewish culture in the first century, including Joseph and Mary, to have kids. I don't think Joseph had in mind to have kids, and then, oh, Jesus was born. Well, I guess there goes my plans. I don't think that's what happened. The Catholic narrative, I just think it's false. So anyway, yeah. So I think that he really had a biological son, Mark. That was the setting, the culture at the time, and also Babylon here. It's not referring to Rome. So at the time this was written, Peter wrote that this was Babylon. Okay, Babylon, Egypt. It was renamed in the year 300, the 8300. This is where Mark would have been. Okay, his son. Just makes sense. So Peter being a fisherman, he would have access to his son this way. You had multiple water channels going in and out. I believe it really is biological son. Now, if we go back to my PDF, around the year 300, that is the year they renamed to Fortress of Babylon. So you click on that link. According to 7th century writer John Nikiu, the name Babylon was given by Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar was around 605 BC till 562 BC. So way back then, it was named Babylon. And then it was renamed in the year 300 under Emperor, I'm not going to attempt to try to pronounce that, but it was renamed to Babylon Fortress or Fortress of Babylon, okay? So the timing of that, no coincidence. It was right after, let's see here. Yeah, Eusebius began his work on ecclesiastical history. As I showed you in many other videos, he was trying to rewrite history here. No surprise that 10 years later, it got renamed. That's all part of his plan. And try to centralize theocracy around Rome to reverse the decline of Rome. Again, go back here. The decline of Rome began way back around 235. And then Eusebius was born, and he tried to, he was born actually around over here, right here, 259. And then through his works, he tried to rewrite history to reverse that decline, and he succeeded. Okay, so that's when they made the fake cemetery of Peter. They fabricated the cemetery, the coincidence of timing. How would they know that's Peter's? First of all, they don't even know what he looks like. It's just a bunch of bones. And to my understanding, the tomb had Simon on it. And so, again, if you watch my videos, other videos, what are the chances of Peter stepping foot in Rome? It's extremely unlikely. The evidence just piles up. So anyway, so it would have been Babylon, Egypt, which makes sense because his son Mark is only about 100 miles away. Okay? Where if you want to believe that's referring to Rome, so that would mean that Peter's way over here and his son's way over here instead of being just 100 miles apart. And remember John 21, Peter and the 12, including John, they were given the role of feeding the sheep. First, Jesus said, feed my sheep. And then the second thing he said was, shepherd my sheep. And then the third thing he said, feed my sheep again. So I believe to start with the natural first time, feed my sheep, that have been feeding during the famines. Okay, they were going through, you read that right in Acts chapter 11, going through the reign of Claudius. Okay. And then he says it again, feed my sheep. Now we're getting the spiritual. Okay. And that's where 1 Peter, 2 Peter comes in, more of the spiritual things. So anyway, continuing on. So Acts 4:13, now they observed the confidence of Peter and John, understood that they were uneducated, untrained men. They were amazed and began to recognize them as having been with Jesus. So it's not like there was a calculus question they couldn't answer. It's not that type of uneducated. They were speaking, okay? There had been some sort of language barrier that they realized. So if you go check Acts 14, they were likely not trained in Greek, okay? That's what it suggests. At that time in Jerusalem, the educated, they were the ones that would have known Greek, okay? The highly educated and well-trained authors, okay? They were not in that category. They were just fishermen, okay? Why am I bringing this up? It's because in Rome, they spoke Greek and Latin. Neither John or Peter knew the languages of Rome. So at best, following the biblical narrative, Matthew 10:23, going to the cities of Israel, at best they've just gone through there and left. As you know, go here. Let's just open up Matthew 10:23. Okay. But whenever they persecute you in one city, flee to the next. For I truly say to you, you will not finish going through the city of Israel until the Son of Man comes. Okay. And that considered Jews in every nation. Acts chapter 2, verse 5. Okay. So they would have, the moment they would have gotten persecution, they would have fled to the next city. Okay. They were not to be there for a long duration. Okay. So at best, that's what you can come up with. Just knowing the language barrier with Peter and John, it's unlikely Peter lived there as a resident, okay? Nor were the a Roman citizen as well, okay? So, something to think about. So, anyway, so you got the language barrier, got family. So, at this time, so the son of me. Okay, so that heavily suggests it's the biological son. When you look at the Greek lexicon, it heavily suggests that this is biological son. Okay, and Mark, the son of me. Okay, let's go in that for a second here. Me, the beloved, follow after me. Okay, no, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, so. Son of David, son of whom? Let's see here. Okay, a descendant. Okay. Yeah. So it's it includes literal and figurative usages, but Peter, in his writing, look at the nature of his writing, he was not using a whole lot of figurative literature. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. So, at that time, keep in mind he has family. Okay? Emperor Nero is known for being one of the earliest, most notorious persecuted Christians in ancient Rome. He blamed Christians for the Great Fire of Rome in 64, which destroyed portions of the city. So if you do a study on Nero and the persecution of Christians, it was intense. Why would Peter, who in God's wisdom assigned him to be shepherd over the house of Israel, why would he show such negligence with his own family, who are part of the house of Israel, by the way, and to bring him off into Rome, while what kicked that whole thing off was just chasing after Simon, according to Eusebius. Remember, well, he watched that video. So that would mean that he's chasing after him, forcing his family to move with him, okay, all to repeat the same message he gave in Acts chapter 8 years later, when it already, his hands were already washed, cleaned, where it between Simon and God anyway. Do you see how this is ridiculous and how people have been fooled into believing in such a ridiculous narrative? Totally buying into Eusebius, not practicing discernment, what they're reading. And these people are called scholars, by the way. And then when you look at the history of the expulsion of Jews, there was one in 19 CE. There's also during the time of Claudius. So if you have a family and you got an expulsion of Jews, would you really bring your family over there and park them there? And, it makes no sense. And again, his son was here. In all likelihood, he was here. It makes no sense for him to go off over to here. Does not fit the biblical narrative. It does not fit with fulfillment of Acts or Ezekiel chapter 37, where the two sticks becomes one. Talk about the stick of Joseph versus the stick of Judah. That if he moved over there and he was telling the 5 churches to go to Babylon, and they're supposed to interpret that as Rome, how would the two sticks become one? You got the stick of Judah here, who had to flee to Jerusalem. That would have meant they would have had to go all the way over to Rome to become one stick, which is incredibly stupid logistics. They would have to go past the Roman army. They would have to be a suicide venture where Nero was murdering Christians. It makes no sense. And just go to show the power of priest opposition. When you believe something to be true that's false, it just blinds you. It completely blinds you. It puts you off on a tangent trail, following a rabbit trail. Not to be underestimated, and it's not talked about enough. So anyway, when you piece all these in together, along with the previous 4 parts that I've already mentioned to you, you piece this all together, it's extremely likely that Peter ever stepped foot in Rome. So you've already, hopefully you watched the previous 4 parts. So it's part 5. When you watch all this together, it just does not add up. And it goes back to my videos, how difficult would it be to rewrite church history in the 4th century? And I point out, it was Eusebius that did that. And that's the timeline that I have here. And when you look at the timeline, the events, the timing of the events, the chronological order, it's no coincidence. It heavily points to a rewrite of church history. And so anyway, and that's why we have to be very careful where we build our opinion and theology from. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 20. Let's go over there for a second. Okay, let's highlight that. No, it does not say anything about church fathered. It does not say anything about succession of beliefs or apostle succession. Now, if you believe that this is inspired, then you have to believe that it's written by God, it's been an all-knowing. So if you're building your theology off church fathers and you believe this is inspired, you are not being consistent with this verse. Because then you have to believe, all-knowing God, omnipresent God, omnipresent, miss that part. That we're supposed to follow church fathers and follow successor belief. That's our foundation. Do you see how goofy that is? That is Catholicism. And you try to share with them this. Their minds are so full of presuppositions. It's, there's not much I can do. Anyway, all right, I'll just end it with that. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you have an awesome day.